Hi, welcome back to Almost Paradise Gardens. This is Tamara, and I have been gone for 2 months, and I thought I would do a video this time on what I did to try and prepare my garden so that I could be away for 2 months, and how things fared, what things survived and what things didn't, and what things kind of did and kind of didn't, but they're coming back. So it's been an interesting experiment in hardiness, and I really am kind of glad I did it. I did lose some plants that I really loved, but they were delicate and they needed a lot of water, and water where I live is kind of, well, it's intermittent, let's just put it that way. There's times when the water pressure is really low and the sprinklers weren't working right, and other times when the water was just completely off. So I had a neighbor across the street coming over and checking now and then. The sprinklers I had on timers. The sprinklers were set to go off, you know, starting about 2 a.m., 2 to 3 a.m. So she wasn't going to come over at that time of day, and she often didn't make it over until, you know, mid-morning or towards noon, because she works at home. So she would come over, and sometimes it was really hard to tell if the sprinklers had gone or if they had even watered anything. Where I went, I was only about 2-hour drive away, and so I came home about every 2 weeks during the 2-month period that I was gone, to check on things, and I didn't really have time to change anything, or I did a little tiny bit of hand watering. My neighbor did a little bit of hand watering too, things that really looked like they were getting dry, but it was interesting to do. I don't think I'll do it again. If I were to go away again, I would probably hire a gardener to come in and keep the weeds down and make sure things were getting watered, and someone who's knowledgeable about plants. My neighbor is very good-hearted, but she's not real expert on plants, and so she didn't really recognize when things were stressed or what to do about it. So I'm going to take you a little tour of some of the plants that how they fared and how the garden looked when I came back home. My plan was to be gone from April 15th through June 15th, which is our real hot season here. And it's very hot and very dry, a lot of really harsh, direct sunlight. A lot of things can just burn up real quickly with that. So I'll show you what I did. So in my front garden, I have all potted plants in my front patio, and I just gathered them all together and grouped them. I put the things that are a little bit more drought tolerant and didn't want so much water out towards the edges so they wouldn't get sprinkled as much, and the ones that need more moisture towards the center where the sprinkler would get hit them a lot. And I put a sprinkler right in the middle up on a pedestal, and I got this sprinkler off of Amazon. It has these kind of noodles with sprayer heads on the ends, and you can adjust exactly where each of the noodles sprays, so you can get it to go wherever you really need it to go. The water timer I used on the hose in the front was this one. It's called a Hunter BTT. It's actually a Bluetooth timer, and you download an app onto your phone and you can control when the timer goes off. I just set it once, but you know, if my neighbor had told me things were getting dry or they were drowning, I could have changed the timing remotely while I was on vacation, so it's pretty cool. This was a one-station version. There is actually a two-station, so you can have two different hoses going from this timer. It's a different model though. One thing I did in the front garden was put this shade cloth up over the entire patio area. That really saved the day because the sun there gets so hot and so intense during the hot, dry season that things would have burned up without it. You can see it got pretty tattered by the time the 2 months was up, but it was not expensive. I got off Temu and I can just easily replace it. In the backyard, I bought this Rainbird type sprinkler off of Mercado Libre, and it worked really well. It had a very large diameter radius as long as the water pressure was good. It covered most of the back half of my yard with just one station. Uh, and it apparently is not available right now, but hopefully they'll be carrying it again in the near future. I was really impressed with it. When the water pressure was low, the water kind of just dribbled out or didn't come out at all. So that was one disadvantage because of the water situation in this area. This was the water timer that I used in the back. It was a two-station water timer. I do not recommend it at all. It was incredibly difficult to figure out how to program it. The instructions were useless, really. In the future, I will be getting another Hunter BTT with the dual stations so I can control it remotely. I did have one main Y connector at the top, as you can see. So one went directly to a hose, so my neighbor could just turn that valve on the right-hand side and be able to water things by hand with a separate hose. And then, as you can see at the bottom, I put a Y connector on one of the outlets. On the left, there's one that goes to two different hoses, and one goes to a single hose. The single hose was the one that went to the Rainbird in the back, and then the two hoses I had going to different sections of the yard. I had one long hose that I cut into shorter sections so I could have these different little parts of the yard getting watered. So I had one little short piece that went to this little side garden which had my heliconia, and I hooked onto that a sprinkler hose that I got off of Mercado Libre. You could get it in any garden center, but it's kind of hard to always find what you want here, so I just ordered it online. And that went along the front of my little storage shed also, and watered plants along there. So going in another direction from that Y connector, the second station on the timer, I had going to a sprinkler on a pedestal by my gate, and it was one that you could daisy chain together with another hose on either coming in and one going out. So that was really kind of convenient. It had quite a good reach, and I got pretty much all of the garden in that kind of quadrant of the front part of the yard by my patio. And then I daisy chained it to this in another little section under my guava tree that had a little kind of a wimpy sprinkler that didn't have much reach at all. But it was good because it just watered that one little area. So you can see by having small sections of hose and kind of connecting different sprinklers one to the other and having multiple timers going at once, I was able to connect enough sprinklers so I had all of my plants pretty much covered as long as the water pressure was good. I want to emphasize that I got all of this tested and set up. I started probably 6 weeks before I left. I knew I was going to be going away. Things didn't work out. I tried many different sprinklers, which I'll be doing a review in another video. but it just was a trial and error, and I wanted to make absolutely sure that everything was working perfectly before I left. And so don't wait until the last minute to get stuff set up. Give yourself a couple of weeks to make sure that everything is working properly. So now I'm going to go over some of the things that survived. Most of the things did, actually. Um, this is the front area. I was really surprised that the peace lily was actually doing great. My neighbor gave it a lot of water. A lot more than I have ever done, and it's never really bloomed much, but it was blooming like crazy. And she said she just put the separate hose on and just sort of let it run while she would go check the backyard. So it got a lot more water than it normally does, and it was blooming like crazy. I was really surprised that I lost none of my begonias. They absolutely seemed to thrive being grouped together. So the moisture was quite high in that area all the time, but they didn't actually get waterlogged from being sprinkled too much. This fabulous red one I thought I had killed, but somehow during this time away, it came back to life. So the rattlesnake plant and Dracaena, alocaceas all did really marvelously well. Of course, coleus did quite well. This is called an alternathera. It did really well. Caladium did really well. My lavender plant survived, although my rosemary died. And this is Philodendron melanochrysum and another philodendron that's got red leaves, and my roses did quite well. Pothos, of course, survived really well, and this is a fern that's been struggling a long time, but it actually survived. And then the bougainvillea I have in a large pot. It was towards the outskirts because it doesn't like a lot of water. It can almost be drought tolerant entirely, and it survived quite well. So the backyard was kind of really depressing. The weeds just went absolutely crazy in the backyard, both between just being sprinkled, having the pathways watered constantly rather than spot watering the plants. And then the rain started early, just a little before I came back from my trip. And so the rains, things just really started going crazy. And everything is just intertwined with all kinds of different weeds. And so I've been working a little every day now that I've been back. And here's my feet from the mud, working in the yard every single day, trying to pull some weeds a little every day. It's a good idea when you're weeding, though, to know your weeds because this, uh, as it grows pretty tall, so I didn't want it all over the place. It goes to seed and does spread abundantly, but it's called purslane and it is very edible. I've seen it sold in the little markets, and it is just delicious. It adds a nice crunch to your salad. So you can harvest it and save it in your refrigerator and put it in your salad. Starting with the edible plants, the passion fruit survived quite nicely. My poor kumquat died, but the lemons and lime tree did well. The avocado tree really thrived. It's just loaded with avocados, and all my little banana trees are doing really well. So with the ornamentals, the heliconia was absolutely going crazy blooming. In fact, you can see this sticking up out of my strawberry guava tree, which also was well established when I moved in, so it survived. But the heliconia is growing up beyond the guava tree and is just reaching for the sky. And pictured here is the Buddha's lamp, which is a small tree with beautiful pink blossoms, kind of dripping, and blue salvia. The blue salvia was growing completely out of control over my sidewalk, so that got cut back, and the Buddha's lamp needed staking up. The leafcutter ants invaded my yard while I was away, and they pretty much decimated this buddleia, but I just let it be, and it is leafing out, and by now it's actually growing lots of side shoots and doing very well. The leafcutter ants also got this hibiscus, but it's going to survive just fine too. It's just an absolutely beautiful flower. I don't do anything for the leafcutter ants. Everything usually just comes right back. You can see the leafcutter ants got my jasmine vine, pretty much ate all of the leaves off of it entirely. But within a few days, it started leafing out again, and I'm sure it will be just fine and start blooming again soon. When I got home, my orchid tree looked just beautiful. It was in full bloom, and then the leafcutter ants came in and ate all that. But here it's showing some new leaves, so it's going to be fine too. Here you can see a pink salvia, which is right next to the blue one, and they didn't touch the blue salvia, but they ate all the leaves off the pink salvia, but it's showing signs of life, and I just went ahead and cut it way back, and it's going to start leafing out again. So plants that are well known to be drought tolerant are the plumeria, which are absolutely gorgeous, and palms, of course, also just add a wonderful tropical feel to the yard. This is lemongrass, tea plant, and desert rose. Of course, desert rose is very drought tolerant. These were getting some water from the rainbird sprinkler. And then all over the yard I have this pink spot plant which reseeds freely, and it's just such a cute plant, and it's very, very hardy. I got my first cuttings from a vacant lot. I just rooted it in water and it took off, so it's really welcome in my yard. I probably don't need to mention that cannas are very hardy, as are the bougainvillea, which showed no signs of slowing down at all. In the shady areas, here's kind of a mess of coleus and tradescantia. And here in one of my planters is the purple variety of tradescantia that is blooming with its pretty little pink flowers. It is a very hardy plant and almost like a succulent. In those same planter boxes that are fairly shady, I also have a bunch of Boston ferns that just keep multiplying, and my neighbor did actually water those by hand just a little bit. Also in the shade, I had a pot of this pretty red oxalis that survived. It was getting quite a bit of water from the sprinklers. And also hidden amongst the shady area was the dancing lady's ginger, which is coming up better than ever this year. In both the front and the back, I had quite a few succulents, which we all know are very hardy. They don't like a ton of water, and they are planted in very sandy, rocky mix in clay pots. And they were not getting hit by the sprinklers except on the outskirts, but they did extremely well. Here in the very back part of the backyard, with the canna in the foreground and avocado tree, is a giant elephant ear that is just growing humongously. And it was getting quite a bit of water, and it survived miraculously well also. This particular area gets incredible intense sun, full sun. So it was amazing that it did as well as it did. On one of my visits home, I did notice that the avocado tree was drooping very badly, and so I had my neighbor run a hose and just soak it slowly, just as a trickle, for a half an hour or so every few days, because avocados just really can't stand to dry out. I do have the roots covered with mulch, lots of dead plants that I just toss under there, which helps keep the ground moist, but I didn't want to lose the avocados. On my patio in large pots, I have a big Diefenbachia and Dracaena, and I pretty much left those alone, although I think my neighbor couldn't help herself. She watered those a couple of times. So there's just a couple of little clips I'm going to do walking through the garden when I got back. And that's about it for this time. I hope this was interesting to you. Some things that survived I was really surprised at, and other things that didn't survive I was also surprised. But it was a learning experience, and I know how to go forward next year, even though I plan not on going away for 2 solid months. I will probably just go away when it's predicted to be extremely hot. I hope that was interesting to you. Let me know in the comments if there's anything in particular you'd like to know. Things are really different here, in the semi-tropics, where it is dry during what most people are feeling like is spring in the northern hemisphere, and then mid-July we get a lot of rain and things cool down. So when people are suffering in the northern hemisphere, up in the US, etc., and with a lot of heat and humidity, it's actually very pleasant. Like today, it is very pleasant. It's overcast, it's been raining off and on, and a little bit of sun. When the sun comes out, it's quite hot, quite intense, but most of the time it has been really a pleasant, kind of drizzly day, and the garden is getting watered, and it's just lovely. So it stays like that here for several months. So thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye.